Entertaining, informative, and educational. Inspiring content that makes a difference.
This is the Maximus Troy Publications Broadcasting Network.
Join the Academy.
I feel I was denied critical, need to know information.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Bred's Perfection. I'm Kenny Troiano, founder of the Breeders Academy, and I'm here with my wife Nancy and my co-host Frank Bradley. What's going on, you guys?
Well, I'll say one thing. It's much warmer and nicer out than it was this time last week when we done the show. I'll say that.
Here too. Yeah, the weather's completely different.
This time last weekend, it was a single digit here. And today it was almost 70 degrees.
Yeah, I haven't heard many people complain about the weather in your area lately.
We just got thawed out. We
just
thawed
floating away. So,
although Robbie's about to blow away, he had to get down from the trees.
Now, wind, I do not. We can handle the cold here. We can handle the weather, but now when it comes to tornadoes and wind and that sort of thing, we don't handle that too well. Well, we don't get much of it where we're in the mountains, the hills protect us, but we still get high winds, and I dread that most of all.
Yeah. I'm really excited about today's topics. We have a really good topic for the front end, for the public, and then I want to encourage all our members to join us in the back end because we have a really good one that we're going to talk about there, which is going to be separate. I'm hoping we can get to, I really like this outline. We happened to be at Disneyland yesterday, and whenever we're waiting lines, I don't care how long the lines are because I just work on my outline. And the more I was working on it and the more I was fine tuning it, adding to it, I'm like, wow, this is going to be a really good outline. And I'm kind of hoping we get through all of it because that's how much I like it. I was really excited about doing today's show.
Yeah, so, the outline looks great.
Yeah, did you looked it over? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So and I think people will like it. They'll really like it, and the members are going to like what we're covering on the back end. And I even told the members to watch the latest Masters class video, because Frank and I did it, just him and I. We didn't do it with the members this time, so we didn't take any questions. This time we're going to go in the back end, and we're going to cover the same topic, but we're going to talk to the members. We're going to actually ask them questions. So I told them, watch the video. If you have any questions, take notes so that you could ask them. And I think it's going to be a really good one. We are taking next week off. Frank's going to he's on vacation, and we were going to go ahead and do a show. But we thought, I talked to Nancy and everything, and since Frank's going to be off, this would be a good time to take that day and get caught up on some projects. Because sometimes the preparation for the show can take a day or two. And if I don't have to do that and get caught up on some projects, that's really good. So we decided, since Frank's going to take it off, to go ahead and just take the whole week off. And as far as the show, that way, get caught up on the projects, because I have so many really good projects I want to get out, and I know my members are waiting for. So, this would be a good time to do that.
Well, a day's catch up for you is a week to normal people.
Yeah.
Well, me, myself, I've been working 6-day work weeks, some 10-hour days. So I'm welcoming having next week off. So
yeah, you're the one that needs a vacation, Nancy.
I do.
That's true. I'm not really getting a day off, am I?
No,
No.
you're not. No.
Yeah. But I'm trying to stay ahead of the game with all our shows, with the Masters class videos and the projects I'm working on. So when Frank told me that he wanted to take some time off, I was like, good. I always tell Frank, let me know if you want to take some time off. And so Nancy and I thought, well, let's do a Q&A. Let's still do the show. And then I thought about it yesterday when I was at Disneyland. What the hell? Let's just take it off. Let's go ahead, and then I'll make use of that day. It just won't be a show. But I got a question for you guys. I was thinking about when I was at Disneyland. And our motto here is whenever we see a crooked stick, we just lay our straight stick alongside of it instead of arguing with people. So I was kind of thinking about changing the name of the company from Maximus Troy Publications to Straight Stick Productions. What do you guys think?
No.
I like it. I like it.
No.
I like it.
Yeah, we're all about the straight stick versus the crooked stick.
No. Do you know how many nasty comments you can get out of that? I do not think so.
So I had a feeling Nancy was going to say that. I didn't even tell Nancy about this. This is I just sprung it on it just now. So I was thinking about that at Disneyland, and I thought that would be good. Let me pull that off real quick.
See, I agree with you, Barb.
No, not good, huh?
No.
Okay, this is kind of neat. Hold on a second. Let me pull this up. What'd you think? Did you like that, Frank?
Oh,
that
yeah.
name?
Yeah, I do. I'm serious. I do.
So the guys probably did, but not the girls. Okay,
yeah,
we get it. Okay, this is kind of cool. Hold on a second. Let me pull this up. Okay, you know how we're always talking about how to understand type when it comes to the overall shape of the bird, and the best way to see the type of your bird is take a picture of it and then color it out, kind of blacken it out so that you can see the silhouette. Well, our members are kind of getting with the program, this is what they're doing. One of our members sent this to us, and I just got really excited that they're really understanding it, and they're actually starting to do it themselves. And this is what one of the members did.
That's cool.
The best way.
Yeah,
That's
it really shows you. It helps you understand type and confirmation. So I thought that was kind of cool. I do want to welcome our new members. We've gotten a lot of new members for January, and I'm eager to work with you and see how your fowl progress this season. And I don't know, what do you think, Frank? It's like a New Year's resolution.
Oh yeah,
everybody's trying to jump in here and start learning how to breed.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is, and we said it a million times, I know there's people out there that this is not their cup of tea. They've got chickens, and they look at it like, that's too much time, that's too much effort. I'm too old to learn, or they make some kind of excuse. And I understand that. That I totally understand it. But for the ones that's serious about it, and I guarantee you, if you go inside the Breeders' Academy, you're not going to find any hobbyists in there. Everybody that's in there is basically serious and to the point and wants to do the best they can with them.
Yeah. We're really, it's kind of fun because we're really changing the trend. We're getting more people interested in breeding, wanting to create their own strains. We're getting to the point where there's no more guessing, no pointless experimentations, and they're starting to produce better families, better fowl. And they're not the best thing, Frank, is they're not relying on other breeders.
That's the whole goal. That's the whole goal. That's what got me on the side of this. I got tired of going back and relying on other people just to be disappointed time after time after time and time again. And, each time you hear it every time, they don't look like much, but I promise you the offspring will be what you want. And, it got to the point to where every time I heard that, I just want to say, listen, just keep your chickens. I'm leaving. I'm going because you know where it was headed because it's the same old horse and pony show.
Yeah. They're just not getting anywhere. And the breeders aren't really setting them up properly. They're not setting them up for success. They're giving birds to them in a way and then suggesting breeding methods. They're only going to drive the people right back to them just to make more money, So just that's one thing I hear from the members when they really understand how this all works and gets in there, checks out the Founders Program. They're like, wow, I could create a family and keep them going forever. I'm never going to have to go back and rely on these other breeders, Yeah. And they see how possible it is. So that's good.
And that goal actually come a lot, I think, from the hatcheries, because when you buy birds out of hatchery, you're buying hybrids. You don't get pure strains when you get from the hatchery, and they do that because they don't want you replicating those birds. They don't want you to be able to breed those birds. You use them for what they're used for, then you discard them and you get new from them again. And that's what they want you to keep doing. They don't want you to be able to do your own. They want you to be able to come and buy off them when you need more chickens.
Yeah. So they're taking charge of their own destiny, and I applaud them. I think it's great. So, like we said, make sure for the members, we're going to do the topic we're going to cover today is selection versus culling. And I know we've covered this before, and I can revisit this topic over and over again, but it's always one that I think most people need. And I'm always looking for ways to hit it from a different direction. But for the members, make sure to join us in the back end for the members roundtable. And we'll only be doing the front end for an hour. So for some of you that want to become members, make sure to go to www.breedersacademy.com, hit the Become a Member button. That'll take you to the registration page. That way you can join the membership. For those who are not ready to be a member yet, that's fine. Just make sure to join our free newsletter. Also, go to www.breedersacademy.com. There you're going to get a lot of free breeding tips, free information on breeding, free ebooks on breeding, and new opportunities for new subscribers. So make sure to subscribe today. Just go to www.breedersacademy.com. Okay, so are you ready to go, Frank?
Yep. You want to do the advertisement now or later?
Nancy, you want to do the advertisement?
Sure.
Okay. So much for the producer. I should fire her.
Sorry, Nancy.
She's not actually doing the job. Okay, we'll be right.
It's not at the half hour, so why would I be? We're supposed to do it at the half hour.
I don't think we ever made up our mind when we're going to do it.
At the half hour.
I figured if we got it first, we wouldn't have to worry about it.
I think so too. That's where I wanted to do it. So for Nancy, here we go.
Okay. This show is brought to you by the Breeders Academy, where we will help you to increase your knowledge of breeding, advance your skills as a breeder, and help you to improve the quality and performance of your fowl.
As a member, I'll provide you a roadmap that you will need to create a true family restraint. Starting with a cock from one breeder and a hen from another breeder, no problem. We can help you to turn your flock of hybrid crosses or mongrels into a pure family or strain, and show you how to continually improve that strain each generation. We'll start by showing you how to select your seed fowl and how to turn that seed fowl into a high-quality foundation strain. Our proven breeding programs and specialty courses are designed to take you step by step through the breeding process. And best of all, I'll be there to help you every step of the way.
We urge you to check it out. You have nothing to lose, and you can cancel at any time. Simply go to www.breedersacademy.com to sign up.
The Breeders Academy will not only change the way you think about breeding, but improve the way you breed your fowl. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about understanding the relationship between selection and culling. And Frank, many, they know selection's important, but few of them know how to select. Many know culling's important, but few of them cull hard enough. And I thought this would be a good approach to tackle this.
You can take the best breeding program in the world and know everything there is to know about breeding. And if you're not a good breeder as far as selection, you're wasting your time. You'll never ever make it. You've got to learn how to select. But a lot of times, even if the breeder knows what he's doing and they're not aware of the cull aspects, especially the defects that we see in our birds, that's another dead end road that you're going to get into as they go. And a lot of people's not aware of all this as well.
Yeah. I mean, if they don't know the breed and they don't know the traits to select for, they're not going to make progress. I think Frank's exactly right. I don't care what you use. I don't care if you use the Founders Program. If you don't know your breed and how to select them, you're just not going to get there. So I always say the future of your strain is dependent on your ability to select the proper brood fowl. And so a lot of people are struggling. They're selecting the wrong birds. They're selecting birds with defects, selecting birds that don't represent their breed. So a lot of times they're sick and they're told that that's the norm, and giving them medications is the norm. They're dealing, and this is common, and I think there's ways to work around this, but a lot of times they're dealing with cross birds, hybrid birds, mongrels. And that, again, we say it all the time, that it's the Founders Program that was created to deal with that. But they got to know their breed. They got to know what to select for. They're just not going to get there.
Yeah. And I go back, and I know other people's doing this because I did too at one time. When I looked at my birds, I didn't see type confirmation. I didn't see the beauty of the bird. I just seen a rooster and a hen, and I thought that's all it required. And what come out of them is what come out of them. And they was either good or they was bad. And I didn't realize at an early age that we had so much control as far as selected breeding. If I'd only knew how plastic these things were and what traits we could instill into them, I would have been a lot better off than I am now. I'll say that. But having that come to light really saves you as a breeder. But I think that's a big holdback for a lot of people. They see it that way. They see it as what you get is what you get. They don't know how much power they have as far as the influence on those birds to the birds they select over time to take them forward.
Yeah. I've always been told how these birds are, you can mold them and sculpt them into basically anything you want. If they express the trait, you can exaggerate and take advantage of it. Okay. So I always tell people, well, look at it this way. Your selection's based on the phenotype and then the genotype. So basically you're looking at the bird, whatever he's expressing, that's what you're able to select from. If he's not expressing, you can't select the trait. So if he all of a sudden decides to select, express a different trait, then you can breed towards, exaggerate it, and then it can become a major part of the genome, And so, yeah, I always tell people, what you see in front of you is what you get to work with. Whatever they express after that, then you can start changing them, improving them, and then there, little by little, you can mold and sculpt them into pretty much what you want. They'll be completely different birds within a few years, so.
I've had so many people looking at it that way, though, Kenny. They would seem to think that it wasn't in our power to do, that it was in the birds. Either the birds had it or they didn't. But they don't understand just what you said. Taking the trait, showing that trait, and manipulating it every single season of the traits that you want. And over time, you can make that trait just as strong as you want to make it. But it could take years to get it to where you want it, but it can be lost overnight.
I think that's why, people don't understand that, but they kind of They're confused when I tell them I've had this family. I actually got them from Colonel Givens originally, and have never added outside blood, but yet they're completely different than when I got them. And that's exactly what I did. I just used the Founders Program. I just kept looking for variations that worked in my favor. I bred to those, exaggerated them, and little by little, I was improving the family, and to the point that they're completely different than where I got them. You know, Frank, even Mother Nature works that way. If the trait isn't expressed, then Mother Nature can't select for it. So Mother Nature is going to react to the trait that is being expressed. They either can survive their environment or they can't. Okay, variation pops up, and then I lost my train of thought. Nancy popped up and
sorry, I was sneezing, so I went offline so that I could sneeze and not interrupt you.
Okay.
I still interrupted you.
Variation pops up. Mother Nature takes advantage of that. That variation is either beneficial or detrimental. She either takes advantage of it or she gets rid of it. And then again, that's how species change. And we react the same way. I always say that we can, by emulating Mother Nature, we can make a lot of progress in our birds. And the variations that pop up and selecting towards them is one of them, you know. So,
And we can do it light years faster than Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Lot faster. It's just like, you know, I sit and I think about, Kenny, well, even in the domestic chicken world and in Mother Nature, how many traits have been established that could take chickens so much farther, but they was wiped out, predators or just the breeder not acknowledging or seeing those type traits and passed over on them. That's done every day. I guess you could say there's traits that our birds express that could take us so much farther, but you've got to have the education and knowledge to know and be able to test for those traits and find them to be able to use them. Because if you can't find them, you can't use them.
We're kind of back where we were talking about in the beginning. What you got to know your breed. You got to know what traits to select for, you know, and you got to know how to breed them.
That's the main thing. You got to breed them before you can feed them.
What's up, Nance?
But you have to have patience.
It's always patience.
It's always, you know, patience and keep a good eye, keep a good record of what you're doing and what you're breeding, because every year that you progress, you're going to know more and more about your variety, your line, your lineage, whatever, because you're going to see more in the offspring. You're going to realize, oh yeah, they got that trait. Oh, this year, oh, they're showing this trait and that trait. And, you know, you write it down in your record book and you keep good tabs on it.
The quality, it depends on the quality of the seed fowl you start with. So if you start with that decent fowl, you're going to make better progress. If you're starting with fowl with a lot of faults, you'll get there, but it's going to take a lot of time. So you kind of need to know where you're at. And yeah, I think patience plays a role, because I mean, there's some people that believe that you can create a strain in 1, 2, maybe 3 years. We see it in the Founders Program. That's not possible.
It's not.
It's not possible at all. It's
not. And Nancy's 1,000% right, though, as far as patience. A lot of people, you know, good breeders take time to test the progeny, to find those traits that they're looking for. Somebody that's impatient, they'll come out and they'll see, you know, a bird. Okay, he looks the best. I'm just going to breed him. And they're breeding blind. They don't know what traits that bird's holding, you know, in the beginning of making the family. So they just breed by what they see on the outside and not looking on the inside. And I think that's a terrible mistake they make. But if they took the patience and they did test to find the traits that they were looking for, they're gonna save time in the end, because their birds is going to be where they need them to be.
Yeah. You know, I'm still seeing people discrediting genetics, that you don't need to understand genetics. And they really don't understand what that means, genetics. It's not, you want to start with the best fowl possible, which is going to give you the best genetics, but understanding the genetic factors is going to show you actually what birds to select. And if you don't understand the genetic factors, you're going to be usually selecting the wrong bird all the time. You're going to be selecting the wrong trait. And the trait you're selecting is going to be the trait that ends up getting eliminated, because the other trait that it's against is actually going to eliminate it, that kind of thing. So unless you understand the genetic factors, you're not going to understand what to select, you know? So I just find it funny that people are still discrediting genetics.
And that's so true, Kenny. or they've got, you know, in the beginning, they're starting out, everything's falling in place, and they're breeding for true type conformation, and their birds are really centered, they're really balanced, they're looking good, but they find that one bird that's got the trait that they're looking for, but everything else is all to hell on him. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have anything but that one trait. And then they throw him in the mix and breed him, and then it just destroys everything.
Or they find a bird that has exactly what they want, match it up to a bird that has all the traits that are going to eliminate all the things they want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
true.
you got to bit, you know, you cannot, let's put it this way. They don't put the connection together, the genetic selection connection together, that you can't select unless you do know the genetics. You cannot select unless you know the genetic factors of the traits that they're expressing. We're back to the phenotype of the bird. You look at the bird, you look at the traits they're expressing, you determine what the genetic factors of those traits are, and then you can determine how you're going to breed them and who you're going to breed them with, so that you can hopefully preserve those traits or change those traits if that's the case. So
yeah, and that's the biggest reason that people that's breeding and are serious about breeding, they need to understand, because it's like this though, Kenny. In science and genetics, common sense can't be used in order to understand it. I mean, a lot of it is common sense, but some things work against common sense. What seems to work with common sense, like you breed one bird for this trait, one bird for this trait, you're thinking the offspring is going to have both the best worlds. Right? Well, it doesn't play out that way. It doesn't work that way. But that's how people see it.
I think a lot of it's common sense, but when it comes to what we call the science, then I understand some of that isn't. They need to learn it. They actually need to learn how it works. Okay. But once you learn it, then you know it. And then it prevents you from guessing, which is what a lot of people are doing. We talk about all the time, like Robert Bakewell, the father of selective breeding. You know, that's what he did. He brought the science and breeding. He took the guesswork right out of it, you know. But the problem is not all of us caught on, because there's a lot of people still guessing. They're still just putting birds together, see what they get, the experimentation game. And they're just not getting there. They don't understand why. But when we bring up that you need to understand the science, you need to understand the genetic factors that the bird's expressing so that you can select properly, they either get it, don't want to do the work, or it's too much for them to comprehend, instead of just trying to learn it and then run the other way. So I don't know.
Well, I think 90% of it is hybrid vigor. They get blinded by hybrid vigor, and then it's like, whoopee, I've done it. I've accomplished what I needed to do. And in 3 years,
I thought.
yeah, and then 3 years down the road, they're thinking, what the heck happened? Where'd my good birds go to, you know?
Yeah.
It's one step forward, 2 steps back.
That's it. Or 5 steps back, really.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, we have a, you know, we say that you want the offspring to be better than the parents every generation, but you're just not going to get there if that's coming from heterosis or hybrid vigor or the crossing of birds, you know, then you're not getting there. It's kind of a illusion. But you do need variation, especially in the beginning. Now, the tighter we make the family, the less variation we want to see. But in the beginning, we do want to see a lot of variation, because that's going to help us improve the family. Without variation, you can't improve it. There's a saying out there amongst some of the best breeders out there that variation makes selection possible, and selection makes improvement possible. So without variation, new breeds and varieties can't be created. That variation in the beginning is so important, you know.
Let me ask you this. So variation shows what traits, shows what's in them. It gives you an idea of what's in them.
Variation just shows you, well, kind of. Variation kind of shows you, how do I explain that?
The difference between the siblings on stuff that you could actually take and use if you want. Now, some things you might say, oh gosh, no, I want to go away from that. But, you know, they may be one sibling that's different from all the others. You think, oh, wait a minute, I kind of like him. Like we was talking about with that different colored bird that I had there the other day, Kenny. Same way, really.
So the more bloodlines in them, we call them mongrels a lot of times, the more variations in them, the more genetic diversities in them. We call it the potential for variability. So the more potential for variability, the more chances of them expressing unwanted detrimental genes and sometimes even a desirable gene. And as a breeder, this is where selection comes in. It's about knowing when those traits are expressed, which traits are going to work in your favor and which aren't. And if you don't know the genetic factors, then you could invariably pick the wrong trait and go down the wrong road.
And lose it.
Yeah, and lose it. So yeah.
That's very important.
What do you think about this? Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead and read it.
Variation is all the chromosomes that go way back.
No. Variation and throwbacks and atavisms is completely different things. And you won't see, if you see a throwback coming from a parent, that's not a throwback. Okay, throwbacks are called throwbacks because a lot of times they show up all of a sudden from ancestors you didn't even know existed. But the truth is, it's just hidden recessives most of the time that are just waiting to be surfaced. And a lot of people are confusing throwbacks with mutations even. That's not a throwback either. So a lot of people misunderstand. Someday I want to actually do a show on throwbacks, atavisms, mutations, and chimeras. You know what I mean?
Because we talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about that many times. I even started writing an outline for, that we're going to maybe cover that in the back end because that's a really good one. But a lot of people confuse I wouldn't call throwbacks variations. So no, I wouldn't say that. That's not the way I think of it.
Just not too long ago, it's probably been a couple months. There was a guy on there trying to sell the chimeras and said he could duplicate them and had turned them into a family. And there was people on there, well, how much? I want to buy them, and it showed a pic of one that he'd got off the internet and was swearing to me that he could duplicate them. And I said, you can't. There's no possible way you can't. For that process to happen, it's almost like lightning striking you 5 times in the same place in a single hour.
We call it chimeras because they're kind of unexplained. They just kind of pop up. They're kind of in the realm of mutations, and they simply can't be repeated. No. A lot of mutations, there are different mutations, and the mutations, a lot of times they can be repeated in that if you can match the right bird. White is a good example of that. It's a simple one. We understand how that works. White isn't a throwback. It's not an atavism. It has nothing to do with distant ancestors. It's actually a mutation. So if we get a white and we breed it to another white, they breed true. That's the nice thing about a lot of mutations. A lot of mutations pop up. We don't sometimes even recognize it. We think it's a throwback. We don't know what to do about it. So we're not able to reproduce it, and then it's gone. It's gone. So whenever you get a mutation that pops up and you think it's a beneficial one, you got to understand the difference between a simple variation of a simple recessive trait versus a mutation and understand how to match it properly so that we can keep it, exaggerate it, and that kind of thing. So,
yeah, a lot of people doesn't understand the sport, the sport whites. They don't understand it whatsoever because I see it so many times. They'll have them on there, and I've had this red family for 30 years, and all of a sudden a white popped out of it, or 2 whites popped out of it, and somebody's like, "Oh, well, they ripped you off. They added blood to it. They added white in it somehow or another." But a lot of people have no idea on the true sport whites how they're made up, how they come to be.
Yeah, they're just simple mutations. That's why we have them. It happens in nature. A white rabbit, you'll have gray rabbits. All of a sudden, a white rabbit will appear. A lot of times they don't last because they get picked off really easy. Sometimes you'll actually see white deer. You'll see a group of gray deer, wild deer. All of a sudden, you'll see a white one in there. And sometimes you'll actually see a group of white deer. And that's only because they got together and start reproducing themselves, that kind of thing. But chimeras are different in that you get a bird where one leg is green and one leg is yellow. You can't reproduce that. Or you get one dark eye and one red eye, that kind of thing. Those are chimeras. Or you get a bird that's white on one side and red on another side.
And I mean, it's like a two-face.
Yeah.
It's split right down the body. One side can be completely white. The other side could be red or, a light red or a dark red, whatever it may be. It's really, it's a freak of Mother Nature, really.
Yeah, it is.
On those. They really are.
And you just can't reproduce them at all.
You can't. There's no possible way. There's no possible way of doing it.
Yeah. So what is he saying, Nancy?
Like Dustin was saying, Rolando had a cull that came out with one blue leg and one white leg.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Parents were white-legged.
Yeah. Well, and that's a chimera, but blue leg's very related to the white leg gene. So that's not uncommon to see blue legs pop out of a white-legged family. You can, that's more common than you think, but to have a bird that has one white leg and blue leg, that's a chimera. You can't reproduce that.
And you see a blue-legged game fowl, and everybody's calling it pier. No.
Yeah.
That's made of a cross.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused, guys. And I don't know if anybody else is, but back with variation is all the chromosomes that go way back. Why isn't that so? Because, the variations shows the different traits that are within that family.
I think it's the way he's wording it. I think it's the way he's wording it, that it's, yes, you have the chromosomes, the genes are within the chromosomes. Okay. And then you have the alleles that make up the genes. Okay. But so he's just wording it wrong. I wouldn't word it like that. I wouldn't even think of it like that. Variations are various alleles. Basically, what you have is you have traits that are heterozygous versus homozygous. And they're because it's a dominant trait, it's expressed. Once you match up two birds that carry the recessive trait, then the recessive is expressed. So you can't mix that up with mutations and atavisms. Variations pop up just because of the matching of the parents. They have to match each other for that trait to pop up properly. So,
yeah, but aren't the variations showing what is in that line?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they're not all expressed at the same time. A lot of times they're hidden.
True, for a while, for a few generations, and then
maybe
they pop
forever.
They're dormant.
They have to match up properly for them to be expressed. But the more homozygous you can make the bird for those particular traits, the less variation you're going to see. And that's what you want. You want to get to the point when the family is more homozygous for those traits, then the variations aren't going to pop up. So you have a lower potential for variability. And the more inbred they are, the closer they are, the lower potential for variability, the more predictable they are, the more uniform they are. And that's what you're looking for.
We do those traits like mushrooms. We put them in the dark and keep them there.
It's like, I get that.
I have more of a problem the way he worded it than whether it's true or not.
Well,
yeah, I know what you're saying.
How he was, because the way he was saying it, I was thinking, well, yeah, variation is what's in the lineage. It's what's in the.
Well, it's like I'm going to go back to what I said. I just won't word it like that. And he's, and on top of that, he's kind of saying the obvious. Of course, that's where the genes are. They're inside the chromosomes. Okay, but the variations are split into different alleles, which make up the variations depending on the allele. So it's just the way he worded it. Okay. So
Sure.
Frank, go ahead, Nancy.
Sure. No, I just said sure.
Okay. So selection and culling go hand in hand, Frank.
Every time. And it has to. I mean, here's the thing. I will go through, if I see a defect, I cull it right then and there. I don't sell it. I don't give it away. I cull it. I do away with it. I eliminate it from my yard. And every time I go feed, I'm looking for a defect. And if I find one, it goes in the feed bucket as I'm feeding, and it goes out of the yard with me. The only reason I'm not culling a defect is because I haven't found it yet. That's the only reason.
I always tell people you're culling to maintain the strain and you're selecting to progress the strain. So when you're getting ready to do your selection, you look at your available offspring, you're determining which ones are going to be part of the breeding program. The first thing you want to do is you want to cull all the faults first. Get rid of those. It makes it a lot easier to look over the birds and select from there when you get rid of all the birds that shouldn't be there in the first place. Then whatever's left, then you do your selection process.
So what you're saying, guys, is you throughout the chicken's life, your breeding life, you are going to be culling almost every day because, you're going to have some chicks that aren't going to be right. And you're going to be culling there. You're going to have some juveniles. You're going to be culling there. You have all your mature fowl and you go out there to feed and you're like, oh, wow, he's got a different color eye. a cull, so it's not like you just cull when they're chicks and then that's it.
It's endless.
Endless. You're always culling. I mean, anytime I'm feeding my birds, I'm looking for birds that need to be culled. Anytime I'm moving birds, I'm checking each individual bird to see if any need to be culled. So that's how I do it. Anything that catches my eye, I'm looking for problems. And like I said, anytime I move birds from I don't do the brooder much anymore, but either from the brooder or from a setting hen, when I'm moving those young birds, I'm looking them over really good before I set them back down in the pen. When I'm moving those chicks to a grow-out pen, I'm looking them over. Before I let them out on free range, I'm looking them over. When I catch them up, put them in the brood pen or actually in the pen so I can go through them, I'm looking them over. I'm always looking for birds to cull, always.
Because they can't, even though you're an excellent breeder, sometimes they can slip by you. There could be something, I could be holding a bird, looking it over, and Amanda walk up behind me and say, "Hey, I need your help." And I look off and I just put it back in the brooder. It's like I was telling you, Nancy, I was telling you and Kenny that I had that stag and he was like 8 months old. And one day he turned around and his wing was white. And I'm like, why didn't I see that? How, if that got by me, how much more got by me? But evidently every time I was looking at him, I was looking at the opposite side of him. And stuff like that happens. But I took care of it when I found it. That's the most important. When you find it, a good breeder gets rid of it.
Right away, just get rid of it, because defects and disqualifications are going to destroy your strain, and they can slip by you. Okay.
Fast.
So, and we say it all the time. You pretty much get what you tolerate. You get what you accept. And a lot of people accept things or tolerate things for various reasons. The name game is one of them. They will accept some pretty bad birds in the process of keeping a name.
I've had people, guys, that say, "Okay, Frank, I've got a bird that's got, say, 2 or 3 different defects. My kids really like it. It's their pet. I'm going to keep it, but I'm not going to breed it." And I said, "Okay, but from where I'm from, if it's on your place, usually it gets bred." So you take your chances by doing that. And then when you tolerate one, you tolerate another one. When you tolerate another one, you do 3 and 4 and 5. And then the next thing you know, your chicken yard is completely full of different defects. You're starting back over again.
Well, too, you changed your site selection, for lack of better words.
Yard blind.
Yeah.
Well, they say, "Okay, I'm just going to breed this one time," and they see the results for the offspring that particular year or next year actually don't look too bad. So they think, "Oh, it wasn't that bad at all. It must not have been what I thought it was." Okay.
It's not been expressed, the defects.
Yeah. And I read it all the time in my old Denman books. They talk about that. Hagedorn, he talks about it, where people have the false illusion of breeding the faulty pair or the faulty bird. They don't see the results of it the next season, but then they breed those birds together. Now they're matching up their the genes, and then it's expressed in the 3rd and 4th generation. And it'll be expressed in the 4th generation in that maybe you don't match brother and sister, but you breed the following season after that, father to daughter or son to mother, then you see it in the 4th season. Okay. So, and then by that time, you got a lot of birds on your yard. You forgot where it came from, and you don't know what to do. So you just keep moving forward. How many times we went to people's yards? I can count on one hand how many times, or the whole flock had the same defect.
Yeah. Well, you take one, okay, you take one, and you make a legion. You make many from that. You multiply from that. But just because, like Kenny said, just because they're not showing that particular defect or defects doesn't mean that it's in there. So when you get closer breeding and you breed that to, say, a daughter or a son, or you're getting them close again, the closer you breed, the more that defect's going to show itself. And like Kenny just said, by the 4th year, it's expressed in all the offspring. You magnified that defect.
Well, and too, that's what scares a lot of people, because they start seeing some junk come out and they're like, "Oh, I'm breeding too close." And yeah. And what you want to see that. You want to see what's in there.
Look at that, Frank. And she knows that. A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
You know, they look
Could it
at
be? Could it be she hears it enough?
Times.
oh man. So I always tell people, don't settle. You know, don't settle for defective birds. Don't settle for sick birds. I know you think you need to, but don't. And if you do, because you have no choice and that's all you got, well then fine, but do what you can to work through it. There is a way to work through it. There is a way to eliminate those problems. Just don't accept it as that. That's just the way it is. That just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question, because you're talking about culling. And this has happened to you before, Kenny, where you have culled too soon and
Yep.
one you were gonna cull and you just didn't get around to it. And it had gotten to like 18 months and is like, oh, wow, this one looks pretty good.
That goes back to, and that might have happened like with the newer strains I've been working with lately, but knowing your breed, knowing your strain after a number of years, you don't usually have that problem because you kind of know what to expect. You when they're stags and they're showing different things. I mean, Frank talks about all the time that if someone looked at his stags, they'd say, wow, you know, these are kind of high station, but he knows his birds. He knows that they're going to grow into those legs. Not all birds do. Not all families that look high station as stags will grow into those legs, but he knows his birds. So whenever what you're saying, you're going to deal with that when you don't know the family that well and don't know what to expect. And I usually tell people sometimes you need to keep them a little longer to get to know what's expressed and what it's going to look like months down the road. Sometimes you need that.
I've had birds that come out of stags and everything about their conformation and type was spot on. But once they matured, they'd be squirrel-tailed. I've also had stags that would be squirrel-tailed or borderline squirrel-tailed. And then when they mowed out into cocks and the tail got fuller, it was perfect. It was where it needed to be. So Kenny hit it on the money. You have to wait and let them mature, guys, before you make any really drastic. But now if it's, say if it's something like a discolored eye, two different colored eyes, or irregular pupil, or crooked toes, or something obvious that way, yeah, I don't care what age it is, it's going, okay? But some things, like Kenny said, you need to wait and let the bird mature to see its full potential and see what needs to be, and then decide then.
Yeah. Again, we're back to understanding the breed, understanding the traits so that you're selecting properly, understanding the defects that can be, that exists and can be expressed so that you're culling them, because there's some things you just don't want to tolerate. As soon as a defect shows it, get rid of it. Don't even waste time. You know, structural things, conformation type, when they're young, that can change quite a bit if you don't really understand the breed. But Frank, even though a lot of people just don't cull hard enough, they keep a lot of birds they shouldn't be keeping.
You know who does cull the best though?
Who?
Mother Nature. If we cull like Mother Nature did, you look at all the offspring that Mother Nature produces, millions, and it's only down to maybe 1-2% that ends up breeding. You know, so I think if we took Mother Nature and we bred more to that effect in culling, I think we'd have better birds and be better breeders because of it. Because culling is important. You're only as good of a breeder as what you tolerate on your yard.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact.
Well, even if Mother Nature misses it, look at that bird and ask yourself, would that trait, a bird with that trait, survive in the wild? Maybe it just wasn't challenged enough. Maybe it didn't have the right things challenging it on your yard. The right possum, the right skunk, the right bobcat, the right coyote, the right hawk. Sometimes they just don't get challenged, so they don't get culled like they should. But so you need to sometimes ask yourself, should that bird be culled? Would it have been culled naturally in the wild? Because we have to take the place of Mother Nature. When we're selecting and culling, we have to think like Mother Nature. We want to, for most of our birds, we want something that's fairly athletic, something that can survive in the wild, no matter what the breed is. You know,
not weak, tough, that can survive. And you're exactly right, Kenny. I asked myself that many times over the years. Could this bird live in the wild? And if it's no, he's gone or she's gone, whichever one it is.
Well, like this. Can any of these survive in the wild? I'd say no.
No.
Not very long, you know. So we kind of interfere with Mother Nature by holding on to birds Mother Nature would have got rid of a long time ago. You know. So,
and that, you know, and here's the key: if Mother Nature scraps it and gets rid of it, then we should too. That bird shouldn't be in existence. But there is, you know, even there's birds in the wild that should be culled, shouldn't be there, but they just got by on the luck of the draw. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And they do end up breeding, and that's just more food for the predators that Kenny named off. They've got to eat too. So basically, Mother Nature feeds all of her animals with the culls of others. Really, is what she ends up doing.
But Frank, some people just don't know better. You know,
That's 90% of it.
Yeah, they're just misguided. They're following the wrong people. Some people think it's just not important. I mean, most of the people that had culls, their whole yard was full of the same defect. You know, they first started by it wasn't important to the point when it replicated itself to a point where all the birds had it, and then they didn't know what to do about it. You know, culls are expensive. Defects are expensive. Especially when they multiply like that.
Don't get me wrong. I don't want a cull. I've got money in that bird. I've got expensive feed in that bird. I've got time walking in the snow. So if I see a defect, of course I'm going to cull it when I see it, because I don't want to go continuing on feeding the thing just to end up culling it, you know, later on. So feed's too expensive this day and time. And that's made me a better culler just by the feed being expensive itself, you know, because I'm not feeding that bird. If that bird's got no value to me, no usage for me, doesn't benefit me, I'm not feeding it.
Yeah. Defects become expensive over time, but sick birds are expensive all the time.
Yeah.
Get away from that idea that having sick chickens and having to medicate them all the time is a normal thing. It's not. It's not.
No.
And there's a lot of people selling medications don't even understand the diseases they're talking about, and don't really understand the medications that they're selling. I call them medication peddlers. It's the downfall of our birds is the medications. When the pharmaceuticals, I can't remember who was doing it. The California Department of Food and Agriculture, and they said they were going to make it. You were going to have to get medications through script. You weren't able to buy them on the shelves. I was the happiest person on the world, because now we're going to have to become true breeders again. We're going to have to get rid of those faulty birds, bring them up healthy, and actually raise them right. Then they start bringing the medications from Mexico, and we're back right where we were. And I just lose count how many people are that they think that having a sick bird is a normal thing, and then having to medicate them is the way of the land. You know what I mean? It's normal operation. Okay, I just don't get that.
How many chickens, Kenny, do you think, just a guess, and think about this. Say, for instance, if the humans vanished off this earth tomorrow, how many you think of these birds would end up reproducing and going back to the wild on their own? They couldn't live without the medication. The first cold front, boom.
Less than 1%.
I'd say you're dead on with that.
Yep.
Even if they had multitude of feed and water, the first time they got stressed out due to predators or the cold or the weather in general, they'd die.
Having to depend on medications to survive it's a terrible place to be. I wouldn't do it. I couldn't even imagine raising birds like that under those conditions. That would not be fun.
Well,
I haven't used medications and warbirds on my birds in years, a lot of years. Okay.
Our birds is the thoroughbreds of the chickens. Okay. They're not supposed to have to be able to live off medication. They're supposed to be strong, disease resistant. They're supposed to be all this other stuff, but people wants to make them dependent on medication, make junkies out of them. And I don't understand that.
Frank, they're not even using the medications properly.
No.
That's the funny part.
That's very true. That's very true. They're given, it's like a lot of these diseases, they have a cell wall protection. Okay. And they make these antibiotics attack the cell itself to kill the actual shell that protects that disease, that germ. And they're giving them medications that attack that to actual diseases they're trying to prevent that don't even require that doesn't have that barrier to protect them.
Yeah.
And Kenny said it a million times. They give them one shot, the symptoms go away, and they say, okay, they're cured. When you're using antibiotics, it's not one shot, it's not two shots, not three shots. It's a regimen of shots over a long period of time, and you lower the dosage as you go. That's what cures them. But a lot of times, they're just taking care of the symptoms itself, and once the symptoms go away, they're cured.
Or they're using medications to prevent the disease. And Dr. Gallardo says you can't do that. It doesn't work that way.
I've got a question here. It's talking about, defects and culling that we can get to before we finish up here.
Okay.
What causes the white in the wing, and what happens if you let it go and keep breeding to it? He's just wondering what would happen with that.
I actually made a post in the Breeders Academy member group just for that.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
I'm going to create a banner like I did this one of a handful of birds that have white in the wing and show you the progression of what happens. So a lot of times you'll see a bird with like one white tail feather or maybe one white wing feather. And over generations and generations, they get whiter and whiter. You start seeing it under the hackle. You start seeing it more in the wings. The wing bow, not the wing bow, but the wing bay becomes white. And then you have different various white feathers coming out of the tail. It just keeps getting worse, So, and I know it can be bred out. I've worked with people where when I was judging shows, they were like, well, what's wrong with my bird? My bird looks as good as him. And I go, the only difference between your bird and his bird is yours has one white feather, his doesn't. And so he checked out his birds, started breeding them in a way, like I told him, in a way that was eliminating the white feathers through selective breeding. And he came back a couple of years later, he started winning the shows. I mean, if you have two birds with the same exact color, conformation, and type, except one has some white showing, it's a shame. But I'm going to pick the one that looks the purest for its breed and variety. I'm just going to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, he started winning the shows by selecting the birds and breeding to the birds that didn't have the white feather. And little by little, he got rid of the white. I agree. There's sometimes when you see a really beautiful bird and it has a couple flare, what do they call it? White
streamers.
Streamers. Okay. In the tail. That's kind of attractive. But the problem is that it gets out of hand. And before you know it, the family goes wrong. And a lot of times too, is they're selecting the wrong hens. So sometimes they can get away with having a rooster pop up now and then with some white flaring in the tail, if they select the right hens. But what they do, they look at the hens and they say, well, this hen has really good type and conformation, but she's got these streaks of white feather coming in her wing. Well, that hen's going to destroy that rooster or her sons big time. Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. And little by little, it just keeps getting worse and worse. So I always say, like, if you like the white, enjoy when they come out, but really do breed to eliminate the white. You'll be much happier in the long run.
I love it. Anybody seen my pics? I love it, but it cannot be contained. If it's in the tail, it's going to make its way into the wing, the hackles, anywhere on the body that it can. And that's so weird because I posted that, I think a few days back. Had a bird I posted. His conformation, his type was spot on. It was a stag, but he had one little bitty white feather in the wing bang. And the thing about it is, it doesn't matter if it's a dot or if it's the whole wing. In genetics, it's all the same. Okay, it's going to go to that.
That white feather is proof that white is in the genome. Whenever you see it, like we talked about earlier, you're responding by what's being expressed in the phenotype. You can't improve the genotype without reacting to the phenotype first. And if you're being blind and not selecting properly and culling out the bad birds and selecting for the better birds, you're ruining the genotype. And then it catches up with you and it comes back. It comes in a vengeance. And how they fix it? Wait. How do they fix it? They add new blood. So some of these people that have white in the blood and they wonder why it hasn't gotten worse is because they changed the family through recombination by adding new blood that didn't have the white. So they kind of slowed down the color problem, but they changed the family anyways. And color isn't everything. So
yeah. Well, remember Kenny when you was here and I had that one stag come out straight headed out of a pea-headed family.
Yeah.
And Kenny's like, oh, I really like his stag here, Frank. And he's even straight headed. I said, yeah, but wait, I read you and I got the stag. Everything about him
Yeah.
was
Uh-huh.
perfect, beautiful. I mean, every way you want it. Got him out. I pulled his wing out and he had one white dot on the shaft of his feather. And Kenny goes, oh, I see.
I go, oh, okay, I get it. What
Yeah,
you saying, Nancy?
I was going to say, I wonder how many people have just like plucked that feather out. It's
And
like,
don't-
okay, it's gone.
It's like gray hair, Nancy. You pull it out, and more comes back.
You get
That's
more.
right.
Okay. That's not going to work, guys. So don't do
That's not
that.
gonna work at all. That doesn't change
right.
the tune.
Maybe for a poultry show, it may get you by a poultry show, okay? But as far as genetics, it's not going to get you there.
Okay, now she's saying that white is dominant only like in the Mediterranean breeds, like a
He's
leghorn.
asking the question.
Oh, okay. Well, in American Games, Old English, a lot of breeds, a lot of the American breeds, the white is recessive. Now, in Leghorns, I think Minorcas, a lot of the Mediterranean breeds, and some of the other ones, there's some others. I forgot what they are. I think even breasts might be. Those are dominant white. Yeah.
So how would you know which is which? Just by the standard perfection?
You could test them for the white, and yeah.
And
So-
testing them how?
Breed
red,
to like a red bird, and by the results you get, you'll know whether it's a dominant or recessive. So if I have a dominant bird, I breed that white bird to a recessive red, then the birds are going to come out white. You know, for the most part. If they're recessive, let's see. If they're recessive, you're going to get various different colors. Like it's going to
Splashes.
white's going to splash. The white's going to replace the black, that kind of thing. I got to remember how that goes, but there's ways to test it. You know,
I took one of my first sports that I got out of my Kentucky Roundheads, Nancy, and it took me 5 times breeding back to the red before I got one single red bird out of them. 5 times to a white hen before I got the first red.
But
That's how strong it is.
You go with knowing that it still has white in it somewhere that's just hidden, not being expressed, right?
Well, I got the sport, a true sport that come out snow white.
Yeah.
And I more or less line breed her back on a red bird to make splashes. And it took 5 times just to get one red bird, just one red. So that shows you how dominant it really is.
Okay, one more, then we're going to go into the back end. Because I think this is kind of important. And I see this a lot. Is a lot of people are afraid to cull hard because they're afraid they're going to cull too much or cull the wrong bird, and then screw things up. Again,
And a lot has problem with it too. They don't like. How should I say this? They don't like the barbaricness, I guess, if that's a word of it. It's gory. They don't like taking a animal's life. I get that, but it's something you do have to condition yourself to, because that bird needs to be eliminated. Just because you give it to somebody didn't eliminate it. It's just going to be it's definitely going to be bred now.
I'm actually not talking about the people that don't like to cull. I'm talking about the people that are afraid to, because they're afraid they're going to cull the wrong bird.
Well, they need to be educated.
They need to understand the breed. They need to understand what to select for and what to cull. Goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning.
I used to hate it.
If you're afraid to cull, then you just don't understand the breed, the traits, the genetic factors of those traits. You just don't understand it well enough. Otherwise, it'd be a piece of cake.
I used to dread the day when I was younger to cull, because I did not like doing it, because I love my birds. But when I found out what those inadequate birds was doing to my families, I didn't have a problem with it then. I could do it with ease. Not a bit of problem. And that's what you've got to tell yourself. Convince yourself of it.
Just look at your pocketbook.
Exactly.
How much you're spending on him.
You're feeding a bird for nothing. That's going to jeopardize your strain. So it's a necessity. It's a have to. Look at Mother Nature. That's one thing that give me a good feeling about it. Mother Nature doesn't take, haphazard birds. She does away with those. Any type animal that's not what it's supposed to be, she has it killed.
Well, here's where, let me just say this. Here's where domestic have, they're lucky, because, a lot of the birds say, I don't know, a barred rock or a Wyandotte. I mean, they're pretty, they're eye candy. birds. And, if they're not what the breeder needs and they've got some defects, they can give it to a backyard person who just wants some egg laying chickens and they don't have to cull. So that's where I say that those guys are kind of lucky in that aspect.
Our dogs love my culls. We take some rice, carrots, and peas, pressure cook the bird, pull the bones out of it, cut it up, give it to them. They love them. So it doesn't go to waste. It goes to good. Yeah. But they absolutely love them.
I think people have various ways to get rid of their culls. That's not really what I'm talking about here. I'm just trying to prevent you from breeding to the culls.
That's the main thing.
That's the main thing.
But
how
usually,
if it's on, is your problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But the thing about it is, if it's on your yard, sooner or later, you're probably going to breed it.
Yeah, you're going to forget.
Yeah.
Yep. Good example of that is one. I mean, I held on to a bird for quite a few years because it had duck toe, but it was beautiful otherwise. And I finally just said, and I almost, this is a long time ago, but I'll never forget it because I almost bred to it, thinking, God, there's everything about this bird I love. He just has that one duck toe. And I finally just said, no, I'm not doing it. I culled him and was done with it. And I still haven't forgotten that. But I almost took the chance.
Been there.
Oh, it slapped inside your head.
And I did do it. And I paid dearly for it.
Yeah.
Just like you said, 4 years after that, it was rye tail. And the fourth year, every one of them, and I mean, it wasn't, oh, is he rye tailed? You knew it was rye tailed, okay? It was bad.
So you guys want to say anything before we wrap up and go to the back end?
I'm ready for some inbreeding talk.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll see you guys later. And it won't be next week. It'll be the week after that. We're going to take a break. I think we need it. and the members will see you guys in the back end. And we have some good stuff to talk about. So hope to see you there. So make sure I'm pushing the right one. See you guys later. Say bye, Nancy.
I did. Bye.
Do it again.
Bye.
Okay.